one of the things that I wholeheartedly believe is criminal is that there isn't enough emphasis for us as educators, period, regardless of whether you're building leader, district leader, classroom leader. There isn't enough emphasis put on that, the art of what it means to be self-aware, to manage your emotions, to manage relationships with others. Those
Welcome to the Teachers Ed Podcast. I'm your host, Edward DeShazer. Teachers Ed Podcast was created to be a thought space for the best. I almost said the breast. We ain't the best and brightest in education to come, to learn, to connect, to inspire, and to grow. Today's guest today, I am honored. Let me read his bio. Today's guest today is Dr. Sean Woodley. He is charged with an unstoppable passion for education. Dr. Sean Woodley, a Hampton University alum, has left marks on every rung of the academic ladder. From a dedicated K-12 teacher to an inspiring university professor, his journey is fueled by a commitment to transform education. Celebrated as Teacher of the Year and the recipient of several awards for his exceptional teaching, Dr. Woodley's accolades are a testament to his remarkable influence, pioneering new paths to the highest levels of achievement in urban and culturally diverse schools. Dr. Woodley is the visionary architect of the transformative movement, Teach, Hustle, Inspire. For those looking at YouTube, I am repping his hoodie. It's one of the dopest hoodies out there. I'll give you an opportunity to find out where you can get that later. He is also a two-time best-selling author of MC Means Move the Class, How to Spark Engagement and Motivation in Urban and Culturally Diverse Classrooms, as well as the League of Extraordinary Educators, The Secret Strategies of Transformative Teachers. Dr. Woodley strives to redefine teaching and learning experience in urban and culturally diverse schools so that the extraordinary gift of educators unlocks the potential of every student in every classroom, regardless of the circumstances. I have had the privilege to hear Dr. Woodley speak several times. If you are not in education, you will understand after this conversation why you need to be following him, why you need to hear him speak, why you need to get in touch with him. He is incredible. Dr. Woodley, I appreciate you jumping on, man.
Oh, man. I don't even know what to say after that, brother. Thank you very, very much, my good man, Edward. It's an absolute pleasure to join you. I appreciate the invitation. Always, I could talk about this stuff forwards and backwards all day. So you just let me know I'm ready to do it. Let's go.
Yeah. So where the space I want us to kind of really, I've heard you speak. Classroom management, student engagement are two of the spaces where I know, and the thing is, they're both kind of hand in hand. Like if you get students engaged, your management becomes a little easier. So really, I guess to start, I gave an introduction. Can you just kind of let people know, if you can, the story that I want you to share is just basically the story that you share when you speak to educators, the version. I know Absolutely. I've heard it where you talk about how you were a DJ and how you got in the classroom and had those challenges. Can you just share that story? Because every time I hear that, I think that is the story that can help shift the mindset of an educator or a school leader that's listening today. So if you can, just share a little bit about yourself and how you ended up where you are with this incredible brand of Teach, Hustle, Inspire.
Absolutely. So my path to education, I started teaching not immediately out of college. I did a 5-year program when I was at Hampton. And so I came out with my master's fully certified, but I didn't get into teaching right away. I took a year before I started teaching, but when I did get into the classroom, it was almost like what took you so long, dummy? You should have been here. Like, this is where you belong. Felt like I was supposed to be there. So I get in there, though, and the school at which I teach, it's about 30 minutes away from where I was living. So I'm not familiar with this area. I'm still living. I went to Hampton, which is in Virginia. So I'm still living in the Hampton Roads area, but I had to go across the water, as they say, across the bridge, teaching at a school not familiar with. So I get into the school, do the interview, get offered the position, and I'm stepping into my calling. Again, what took you so long? Before I start teaching, though, I get offered the position in October, which, number one, is not hiring season. You, as a building leader, you know good and well, right? You already know. So I get offered the position in October. October 6th was my first day teaching, which, for those that did not catch that, that means that somebody was there at the beginning of the year and quit. So here I come. Now, also, when I tell people, hey, I'm getting ready to start teaching, they're asking me first question, oh, great, where are you going to teach? Tell them the name of the school. And then I'm getting all these eyebrows like, oh, be careful. Like those types of responses because of the neighborhood where the school is. So now I'm taking all of this in. I go into that classroom. In my mind, there's only one thing that I need to do because they just ran that teacher out of the building. And I'm talking about these people are like, this school is just be careful in there. It's middle school. So I go in there with the mentality of shutting everything down. And that is exactly what I did. Like I've been told that new teacher mantra where you don't smile to November. Just know I took it entirely too far. And I did not smile probably for my first 2 years of teaching. Just went in there and was just iron fist. This is my way or the highway to get relationships. None of that. And I taught that way. And from the outside, it looked good because my classroom was always one that was very quiet. For the most part, my classroom was one that seemed very compliant. And again, on the outside, it looked good. It was something that I held in high regard, and I wore it honestly as a badge of honor until one day I'm sitting in my office and one of the parents of my sixth grade students, she calls me. She says, hello, how you doing? I said, good. How can I help you? She's told me plain and simple, very directly. She said, my daughter is scared in your classroom. And I will never, ever forget that moment for me because it just hit me as I walked into that classroom every day. I knew exactly what I was doing, but at the same time, I didn't realize the damage that it was causing. For a parent to say that to me, that I'm literally using fear as a teaching mechanism for someone's child.
Yep.
It just, mind you, at that age, I didn't have children yet, but even still, I was very ashamed of what it was that I was doing, and partly because I was teaching the majority of my students were students of color. So here I am perpetuating literally the student to prison pipeline. I'm fitting right into the system the way that it wants me to. So what that caused me to do was to step back and make some very serious changes very, very soon. And I didn't know exactly what needed to be done, but I went back to the drawing board and I started from the bottom, like literally from day one, and worked my way back into what I felt like a teacher should be for students that look like us. And what I also did at that time was it forced me to go back and figure out, okay, hey, clearly this is not the right way, but what is the right way? And gradually my students started to have greater levels of success. I earned Teacher of the Year. My students in the state of Virginia, when you get a blue ribbon recognition, that's like state level. Like we did the doggone thing. And so that in a nutshell really just showed me what could be done for quote unquote those kids, because they have been written off and still are in a lot of cases in other neighborhoods and schools written off. But that potential is there. It just is lying a lot of times dormant and untapped.
Yeah. And, hearing what you're saying, there was something I heard an educator say that, you were talking about compliance. And there's this big misconception in education that compliance is learning. Like sometimes a compliant classroom is just at a stalemate. Me as a teacher, if you just sit and be quiet and don't give me problems, I'm not going to make you do nothing. We will both exist while we're in here. And I've seen that in classrooms, and that's such a big misconception when you tour around buildings and you think of classroom management. To me, classroom management isn't always the quietest classroom. Like I'm worried when the classroom is quiet, unless there's like reading or studying. Like a quiet classroom isn't good. Like there should be
Right.
talking, there should be connecting, there should be stuff going on. But I think from our generation, as you know, me being 41, our generation, like a compliant classroom was considered the best classroom. They're all in the straight line, they're all listening. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that from what I hear a lot of times is that mentality that we got to get out of in education, that compliance doesn't mean learning. And that's why I've always gravitated to listening to your presentations, because there's life in it and there's energy. And I think what you do is so valuable for educators because you model it, versus the people I've seen present that get up there and it's like, bullet point one, this is what you do. Bullet point two, like, I think that is one of the most valuable things that, from my opinion of what I have seen you do,
Mm-hmm.
is how you model that. Like, the classrooms can be fun, and I know there's
Yeah.
there's something you talked about, and if you could go into a little bit, you talked about your experience as a DJ and
Mm-hmm.
how that ties to classroom and student engagement, which ultimately works along with management. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit? Because I think what's stopping, and this is just my opinion, what is stopping some educators from being dynamic is just a small mindset shift. We've
Mm-hmm.
seen and operated in the same space of like straight rows, compliance. And once an educator's mindset shifts, I think there's a lot of growth that'll take place. So can you kind of talk about,
Mm-hmm.
you know, your experience as a DJ and also how that ties to your philosophy as in education?
Absolutely. So essentially, while I was teaching at that particular, I taught at the K-12 level before I started teaching college. I taught for 10 years. And simultaneously, I'm teaching my students during the day, but also I'm now venturing into my craft of becoming a DJ. This served a couple of different purposes. Number one, it's something that I've wanted to do since high school. And so now, having graduated college with a little bit of regular income, I could invest. I was like a legit real DJ. I had records and Technique 1200s. It wasn't like one of those virtual DJs pushing. No, like no, we're like scratching and mixing real stuff. And on top of that, of course, there was an income component to it. So I'm supplementing my income a little bit. It had its advantages, but there was a steep learning curve. Paul, like seriously, for anybody who just thinks that you can just get in front of a crowd and just play anything you are, I learned the hard way more than once that what it takes to literally, like Eric B. and Rakim, move the crowd is not as easy as it looks. So I'm learning and growing each and every day in my classroom as an educator, while simultaneously learning and growing in my craft as a DJ, as a disc jockey, but all while I'm DJing, I'm on the mic, I'm MCing. Like Eric B and Rakim, I used their Duke, that they were like a dynamic early duo in hip hop because one was the DJ, one was the MC, but for me, I was both. So I'm doing the music and I'm on the mic. So I had to learn how to control crowds that I did not know. I had to get up
Mm.
there and learn and get comfortable very fast with creating an environment. And so as I'm discovering this, I'm growing and learning in this profession, but I'm like, hold on, I have to do the same thing in the classroom. But I said I
There
have
it
an
is.
advantage in the classroom. If at least when I'm DJing, like I'm at a club or a bar mitzvah, or retirement party, whatever it may be, I don't know those people. So I have to
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of in that classroom. Those are my I know them. I
Yep.
know, or at least I should. That's a different story. But I have an advantage. But even without that, just thinking at the surface level, I started to understand that when I'm in the classroom or when I'm in the club, I'm trying to do the same exact thing. I'm operating as a source of motivation. I'm making real time decisions. I'm also in a one to many environment. I'm also curating specific content. I'm using creativity because I'm breathing life into those lessons. I'm breathing life into those songs. I'm blending. I'm literally creating an experience for my kids and for those people that are in that club. And that epiphany, if you will, started to resonate with me. And I started to think of my role and responsibility in the learning environment a lot, a lot different. And again, the advantage that I had in the classroom was that I knew them. I knew
Mm-hmm.
them, they knew me. So, like, some of the best experiences, club, if like you're going to a club and like Kid Capri is over. I'm just using somebody random, like you know what he's going to do because you understand a little bit about his style. Like I grew up in New York, so if there's certain DJs that you hear regularly, Funk Master Flex, all of these on the radio, you kind of have an understanding of what it is. So there's a certain level of anticipation. But me, I'm just like a local DJ, so I don't know these people. But in that classroom, I know them. They know me.
Yep.
I know what I'm going to get from them, and they know what they're going to get from me. So I just sprinkled that in every single learning experience that I could with that mentality. And as you said, made that shift to kind of think of the learning environment as a place where I can create that experience and blend those things for my students.
I want to take a second to thank the sponsor of the Teachers Ed podcast, Be Well Teacher Box, a gift box to help teachers focus on their well-being. By using code TEACHERSED, all one word, you can save $7 off of your box. This box here has a candle, a t-shirt, 2 books, shower steamers, lotion, and a bag of coffee. $100 value. And by using code TEACHERSED, you can get this box for $52. Order yours today. Now back to the episode. And the part that hit home the most for me was knowing your students. I think that's an honest question that teachers have to ask themselves. Not even just teachers, principals. Like, let's even take it a step further. Do teachers, a teacher that's listening, the question I would ask you to pause this podcast and listen to is that you're listening at, do you know your students? To take it one step further, to the school leaders that are listening, do you know your staff? Like, how can I curate a playlist in my classroom or a playlist in my school? It would be like me walking into a room as a hip hop DJ, but my whole audience is country fans. Like, do you know what connects with your students? Because if you do, or if you don't, you're going to be playing music that they don't want to listen to. Do you know as a school leader what connects with your staff? Like, do we actually know who we are serving on a day-to-day basis? And I think that is the aspect that I find often gets missed because we're busy as educators. Anyone listening knows that you're busy. Like, we don't have a lot of time. But are we just learning about the people around us on the surface level? Are you and our Dr. Woodley and I in the same building and we're just doing those drive-bys like, hey, how you doing? Good. Nice to see you. And we just blow past each other and we don't know anything. Or are we like, man, what did you do this weekend? Like, I try to make a point in our school when I see kids in the morning and I'm talking to them, not just say, hey, how are you doing? That's the standard. And everyone always says good. Even if they're doing bad, they say good. That's just how we are as a society right now. But I try to ask them, what did you do over the weekend? What did you do last night? How does your mornings look? Because you can learn a lot when you find out, like, some kids like, oh, I didn't get to do anything. So you're like, okay, like maybe something's going on at home. Maybe their parents aren't around. Maybe they don't have as many friends as I thought. So I think some of it is really getting to know the people that we not only serve as a teacher, but serve as leadership or work side by side, teachers and teachers. Like, are we actually asking questions to find out who the people are so we can really gear whatever our quote unquote playlist is for them, to make sure that we're connecting with them? You're not going to play country in a club. They're going to be looking at you like, what's going on? Like, you clearly don't know what classroom you walked into. So, I think that's the part that I was hearing.
And you're spot on. And what that also makes me think of is just like, even like our interactions, like what you're saying, I saw that when I first met you, the first time that we had an opportunity to meet at that conference in person, and then we stayed in touch. And every time you make it a point to go out of your way. Hey, how you doing? What's going, like, it's beyond the surface, and it's not hard to tell the type of leader that you are for those educators that you serve. And so it is very abundant. Like, without having ever stepped foot in your building, I can make a pretty educated guess as to what the environment and what it feels like in there for those educators. Going a step further, going back to what I mentioned before, one of the things that, and I don't really get to mention this often, but what that experience allowed me to do, and this kind of speaks to something that you mentioned before that, is that me treating the classroom in that way, with that analogy of like the teaching and the DJing, what that ultimately allowed me to do was be comfortable being me in the learning environment.
Yep.
And what that did, I kind of, for lack of a better phrase in a moment, I gave myself permission to be just Sean and teach. And me not having to fit inside that mold of what I thought teaching should look like, especially in an urban school. Giving myself, like, it's stressful and it's energy draining trying to be somebody else. And I was doing that every day because me laying the iron, like me teaching with an iron fist is not who I am as a person.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah. It
felt that
shocked
that
me
was
when
who
you
I was
said that,
supposed to
bro.
be. Yeah.
I
Oh
was
yeah.
like, you? Like that's not the energy I get from you.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. When I need to, I can turn it on. But I turned it on and did not turn it off. That was the problem
Yep.
because that is who I was supposed to. That's who I thought I was supposed to be. And you're exactly right. I'm leaving there tired every day because I'm putting so much energy into trying to be somebody who I'm not. And when I had that experience with that student's parent who called me, on top of understanding my just personal and professional growth in both of those roles, it was liberating to go into the classroom and be me. I'm still growing, don't get me wrong.
Yep.
I'm still advancing in my field, in my practice as an educator, but I'm doing it on my terms. And now I can do it without basically draining myself every single opportunity.
Yep. And I think there's this huge, I know there's this huge misconception, especially when you're dealing with Black and brown students in schools.
Mm-hmm.
What you were sharing is, we have this perception that we have to be tough on them, especially Black and brown males. Like
Oh,
we
yeah.
have to be so hard and tough on them. And what I learned, and I also was a leader that has made that mistake. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, do as I say, not as I do. Like, I have this title as executive director. Everyone should be listening to me. I'm the teacher in this class. You all should be listening to me. And it's like when I started to approach our students with love and our staff members with love, it changed how I was received as a leader. Like I had a lot
Mm-hmm.
of growing to do as a leader. And some of it, again, is just a mindset shift. There's this moment that I really felt myself growing. There was a staff member in our building. This was some years back.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the other teachers like, yeah, they have something that they want to share. They have a good idea. And my response to that staff member is like, why won't they share it with me? Instead of that response, it was like, well, why won't they just come and talk to me? Instead of thinking like, what have I done to make them not feel
Mm-hmm.
comfortable bringing this to me? So I was putting all of it on them. Like, you have something to say and a great idea, bring it to me. But I had not created a welcoming space. I was not a
Wow.
welcoming leader where
Wow.
bringing a great idea, like someone was scared to bring me a great idea. Like I hear that now and that's crazy. And I'm still not
Yeah.
perfect. But the mentality shift for me was, what have I done for that staff member to not feel safe bringing a great idea to me? It's not like they're bringing hey, this is a problem. Like this was a great idea
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't feel safe. So I think that for me as a leader was a big shift. And I think that's a shift that some teachers can make. Like we get offended when a student has a concern. You're like, what I've learned is I ask them, like, is there something going on? They'll be like, yeah. And I'll ask them, like, do you want to talk to me about it? And they may say no. And I used to always get offended. But then once you understand, like, a student may not always feel safe no matter how hard I've tried. But then
Mm-hmm.
my next question is there someone that you do want to talk to? Who would
Mm-hmm.
you like to share that with? Versus originally when I got into leadership, I would almost get offended if I was like, Sean, what's going on? You're like, it's a rough day. You want to talk? No. What do you mean you don't want to talk? Like, come on, and you force them to talk. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's not a safe learning environment for any student. And that was a growth for me of like, what can I control? What type of spaces have I created for our students, for our staff? And if they are not comfortable coming to me, what can I do better? Not what should they do? What can I do better to create that space for them to feel comfortable sharing? And I think that's one of the biggest downfalls that I've
Mm-hmm.
heard in leadership when I talk to teachers and I'm like, what are some of the things going on in your school? It's they don't feel heard by their leadership. And that's a problem.
And what you're saying, that level of self-awareness under that umbrella of emotional intelligence is so big And one of the things that I wholeheartedly believe is criminal is that there isn't enough emphasis for us as educators, period, regardless of whether you're building leader, district leader, classroom leader, there isn't enough emphasis put on that. The art of what it means to be self-aware, to manage your
Mm-hmm.
emotions, to manage relationships with others. There's an art to that and a science too. But that and the influence that that has on not just student engagement, but managing the learning environment and proactively preventing situations that could go wrong because inherently school systems, it's very isolating. We are
Yep.
relational beings. We're not meant to be alone. But if you look at the construction of the schools, like not the physical construction, but the structure that is the institution of K-12 learning, and you already mentioned this, straight rows, we sit by ourselves, we test by ourselves, we learn
Yep.
by ourselves. I might be sitting physically next to someone, but the expectation in the general scheme of things, it's very isolated. And that the psychological impact of that does not fit into how human beings grow and just human behavior basics. And this is, we wonder why we have so many classroom management issues. It's because so much of what is the fabric of K-12 education triggers human resistance because it goes against
Mm-hmm.
survival instincts for us to be together. For us, like there are just so many issues, and it if we just allowed teachers the opportunity, and that's one of the things that I really make sure that I put a good amount of effort into helping teachers understand is to go beyond the lesson plan. What
Yep.
is it on an emotional level? What is it on a cognitive level? What about the behavior science? What about the sociology of it? What about the communication aspects of it? What about even the fun? Like there are so many different layers that so many of us are not taught and or educated with, and we wonder why. You look at the data and it's like we're not excelling at achieving. Well, yeah, we have a job where our role is to put information in students' brains, but we're not taught how our brains work. Like,
Mm-hmm.
think about that. That is
And I also
absolutely criminal to me.
And I also feel that more so in the last however many years, I don't even know how many, but I feel like society slowly and slowly is putting more and more on the educators. Like they want us to be the teacher, they want us to be the psychologist, they want us to be the parent, they want us to be the doctor, they want us to be the social
Mm-hmm.
worker. And then we're wondering why our educators are burning out. It's like we're asking and demanding more and more and more of the educators. But
Yes.
like, when do we get an opportunity to actually teach? And I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that has been such a big challenge for educators. And I see this just, when I post stuff on TikTok or on Instagram and you hear teachers responding. Like I see the videos that teachers are responding to. And the one that gets the most comments is the ones where teachers are just like, I've been doing this forever and I am spent. Like
Mm-hmm.
I saw a comment the other day and it was like, I've been doing this for 20 years and I don't know if I can do it another day. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is where we have allowed our staff and our adults to get to, because we're not equipping them, and that's kind of what I'm hearing you say. It's like we're asking them to do things that they're not fully equipped to do. And whether that's something that needs to be an adjustment in the college space, we're like,
Mm-hmm.
are there other things that as we're training teachers, like classroom management, there's never classes on stuff like that. We just expect people to walk in and know how to teach and
Don't
know
get
how
me
to
started.
manage people. So it's like, how do we solve this problem, now, because we're going to continue to lose teachers. But I've
Mm-hmm.
also seen teachers that, a pair that has a high school degree that can manage a classroom better than someone that has a doctorate degree.
Yeah,
And it's all like, there's just some natural skills that some people have, but I also think there's some skills that people can learn. But instead of
that's it.
learning
Mm-hmm.
by fire, like how do we proactively, the same thing you're saying with the students, how do we proactively prepare our teachers to manage students where they are, not trying to make students meet the adults where they are? Like, what
Mm-hmm.
would you suggest would be a solution? And I know, I'm sure this is a 20-hour conversation of how we could make these changes, but what is something that you think is something that we can start doing in the educational space to help our teachers?
To speak to a couple of things directly, and you are correct, this is a conversation that could go in a number of different directions for a number of hours, but at its foundation, we have to help people unlearn what it is that we've come to know as teaching, because that has been proven not to work, but yet we still, because for most of us, it is all that we know, we continue to do it. And so unlearning what we've come to understand as teaching, and then going beyond with explicit and detailed instruction and learning on the different functions of how the brain works, the different functions of our emotional intelligence and how that relates to instruction, the different functions of various aspects of psychology and communication, the different functions of what it takes to even, you can have all of those advanced things, but even the basics, start with the basics. Help someone to understand, and don't assume that they know how to create rules, how to create procedures, and that procedures need to be taught. They need to be practiced. They need to be practiced. We talking about practice? Yes, we're talking about practice. Like, they need to be practiced. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes I just did some walkthroughs at a school just last week. And we have a lot of, in that particular school, you had educators, about a dozen of them, who were career switchers, who wanted to get into teaching, and for lack of a better term, just thrown into the classroom and currently going through their coursework, but were not taught the basics of classroom management. And they're being like, that can be demoralizing to somebody who is coming into something where your heart and soul is in it, but you're failing out the gate. These are people who may not have had, some people have that natural instinct, like you mentioned, but some, they can be taught. Some have that natural instinct, but the rest can be taught, because these things are skills. They're not inherent traits that you just have or you don't. They're skills that can be learned. And so I wholeheartedly believe, going back to your original question, that if we were explicitly taught these things, then we can transform what teaching and learning looks like, so that this extraordinary gift that we've come to know as education can literally take each and every child and unlock their intellectual treasure and expose them to great potential that they probably don't even realize that they have.
I love it. So I want to ask one more question as we get ready to land this plane. I want one piece of advice that you would give to an educator that may be struggling with classroom management or classroom engagement. What is one, and again, I like that you said the basics, because I'm the same way when I work with educators. It's like, if we can't do the basic things right, we can't do the advanced stuff. It's like trying to do long division, but you don't even know how to add and subtract. So what is just one basic thing that an educator can do starting now if they're having some challenges with classroom management in their school, or maybe it's a school leader that's struggling? Like, what's one basic piece of advice that you would give that educator that's listening to this?
There are a couple of different things. You said one. All right, let me narrow it down to one.
Listen, we'll give them a bonus. Give us two. Give us a bonus. We'll give them a bonus today.
All right, I'll give them two. I'll challenge them to think about it in these terms. Number one, from a self-reflective aspect, what is it that you are doing to grow? I ask that question, although it seems simple at its surface. So many of us go into teaching with the assumption that growth is automatic, and you have to be intentional about how you grow. When you go into that classroom, what it is that you're struggling with. Example, if you know that you're having a difficult time getting your students' attention, that's a very easy indicator of something that you can focus on. So what is it that you can read? What is it that, who is someone that you can ask? And then that goes into my second one, the who, the bonus one. We are a product of basically, I'll say it this way, and you've probably heard this before. If you show me the 5 people you hang around most, I can show you your future. We all have that teacher clique that we hang around. But what many of us do not realize is that those people influence you a lot more than you think you do. And so if those people that are around you, if there are people that constantly talk about this group of students and this group of parents and how, and like just the complaining corner, and yeah, we all need to air our grievances every while, but every conversation is something bad. Really? Like, that is a good indication of where you are going and how it's going to shape your worldview, whether you realize it or not. Making a switch there and making sure you are being influenced by someone with strong instruction, strong relationship skills, with strong, I mean, just you can, whatever it is, and put those 5 people around you and be intentional with that and watch how you soar.
And I would even challenge them to take it a step further, not even just the people you hang out with at school, the people you hang out with when you're not at school. Because when you're not at work and you want to recharge your battery, are you around negative people? Like, that is just a life. I don't care if you're listening and you're not a teacher. Like, whatever you do for a living, if you are spending time around people that are constantly negative, it's going to drain you. Life is going to drain you enough. Make sure that you are picking people. Like you said, I'm not complaining, I'm explaining. Sometimes, yes, we got to get some things off our chest. But if everything is dragging you down, it's like having an Eeyore. You know, you can either have an Eeyore or a Piglet. Piglet was positive. He was like, we can do this, Pooh. Eeyore was like, come on, Pooh, we're back at work again. Standardized testing, here it comes. Like, what type of energy and what type of folks do you keep around you? I think that's a lesson in the building and out of the building.
1000%.
So what I want to do to close, I got some quick fire questions for you. So I hope you're ready. We are going to do these music themed. So the quick fire questions as we get ready to close. You can only listen to one music artist ever again. Who is that artist?
Oh, man. In the spirit of musicianship, I'm going to go Bruno Mars.
Bruno Mars. I like it. Okay.
Yeah.
The second question. The best music themed movie ever. It doesn't have to be like a musical, but the best music themed movie ever. I know what my answer is, and I'll share mine when you're done.
Off the top, I'm just thinking of the artistry, the talent, and just the overall impact. I'd probably have to say Ray.
Ooh, that is a good one. That was a very good movie. So my answer was Sister Act 2. I just love Sister Mary Clarence. Like, she just has that energy that
I agree.
But Ray is phenomenal. I think that was the movie that not changed Jamie Foxx's career, but it allowed you to see that he's not just some goofball.
Yes.
And that, like, I was like, wow, talent.
He killed that.
Pure talent.
Most top to bottom.
Love it. That I was not even thinking that. So that was a good one. The last question I have, this one's going to be a little tougher.
Okay.
If you could, so I want an album title that would describe your educational career. So it doesn't have to be the album, just the album title that would describe your educational career.
Life After Death.
Life After Death.
With that experience that I had, the old me, I laid him to rest and moved forward with the new Sean and a new dawn of education. I'll just go ahead and stop it right there. Life After Death. That's it.
That's it. Dr. Woodley, man, I appreciate so much you jumping on. I want to give you an opportunity for those that are listening and wondering where you can connect. If you are listening and watching this on YouTube, all of his information will be in the description. Please go check him out. But can you just let everyone know that's listening where they can find you, where they can get these hoodies, bro? I'll be honest with you. I get more compliments when I wear this hoodie than when I wear anything else. Like, I'm not even kidding you. Like, bro, this hoodie is, not only does it look good, bro, it's comfortable. I'm a hoodies guy.
Oh, man, I appreciate that.
You've done it. I wish I had a piece of the brand. I'll be honest with you, as a businessman. I wish it was mine, but I love to rep it because it's yours. But yeah, let everyone know where they can find you, where they can follow you on social media, your website, all of that information. I want to give you the opportunity to do that right now.
Yes, sir. Before I do that, I want to thank you again for the opportunity to have this conversation, what you are doing and the work that you are putting out there and the impact that you are having. Chef's kiss to you, brother. Thank you. Like, real talk. I appreciate you.
Appreciate it.
But you can find me at all things Teach Hustle Inspire, teachhustleinspire.com, Instagram, Threads, at Teach Hustle Inspire, Facebook at Teach Hustle Inspire, Twitter or X, if you want to call it that, it's at Sean Woodley, my first and last name. And anywhere, usually most education conferences. I go to a lot of education conferences, but I work with a lot of schools in various parts of the country, so I'm on the road a lot. But I'm on social media pretty much every single day in some way, shape, or form. And I would love to connect with you. Holler at me. I'm here.
Man, if you are listening, I cannot encourage you enough to find a conference that he is at, reach out to him, bring him in front of your educators. Like the hour I have seen him present can change the culture in your school. I would encourage you to connect with them, follow him on social media. And as I get ready to close, I want to make sure I take a second to thank our sponsor, Be Well Teacher Box, a gift box made for teachers by teachers to help them focus on their self-care. www.bewellteacher.com. Use code TeachersEd to save $7. Dr. Woodley, I appreciate you jumping on. I appreciate you all for listening. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you leave us a review, make sure you go follow Dr. Woodley, make sure you buy one of these hoodies so you can rep it alongside of us. And until next Sunday, make sure you guys take care of yourselves and have an incredible week.